Hey, I'm Shadi Zaire, and I'm a pre-sales engineer in the IAM space for Micro Focus. I've prepared a presentation today that helps shed light into some of the things our IAM solution can do for your organization, just as we do for others all over the world. So we'll discuss a few different concepts such as provisioning, identity lifecycle, governance, and detective controls. But the two main concepts throughout this presentation are going to be how we manage risk, but at the same time, making it simple and easy to use for end users and for the organization. So what we're seeing here is just a brief clip of how Micro Focus IAM can provide business context so that the correct users have enough information and insight in order to make the right decision, both to make the request as well as approve it. So just as an introduction to Micro Focus, over the last 40 years, we've added some of the best of breed products in the industry, and we're able to offer it all under the same umbrella. So today we're going to combine a few of these and see how it looks to combine them into a robust IAM solution as we navigate through some of the scenarios that I've prepared today. So if I had to put IAM in a simple or single sense, what it really means is who has access to what. But it comes in a few different layers, right? Initially, we have to define your digital identity, who you are. Are you a person? Are you a thing, such as a phone, a mobile device, an application, or some sort of service, right? Let's prove who you are via authentication. And once you're authenticated, let's see what you can do, as far as access rights go. What can you do in the organization? What do you have access to? And why do you have access to that? As well as providing visibility into what you're doing along the way. So in order to illustrate those concepts, I prepared a few different scenarios. And we've picked these because these are some of the most common that we see with our customers today, whether it's something that they already do and that we can enhance, or perhaps it's something that they have trouble doing at all, right? And that can be starting with creating a digital identity and attaching that to a birthright profile, requesting some additional access, detection controls, some sort of emergency disable situation or scenario, as well as providing compliance, proof of compliance along that entire journey. So that brings us to our first scenario, and that is birthright access. We have a few different parties involved here. One being the manager, Steven. We have HR, Eva, as well as a contractor that's going to be joining the organization named Kim. So the first step to this, and usually how it works in an organization, is HR creates a new entry in the HR system, whether this can be PeopleSoft, SAP, or any application along those lines. But this is usually where the identity originates. And in this situation, Kim is originating in this HR system as a contractor. So once Kim is created in the HR system, we immediately pick up on this event in our IAM solution. We create him a digital identity, and because he's been defined as a contractor, we provide him with a set of default access. And this is because we've defined contractors as having or needing some sort of access to get started on day one, so that we're not having to do approvals or requests for every access that he may use in the future. And the great thing about all this as well is that it's not only in our IAM solution where this access is provisioned, it also flows downstream into connected systems, whether that's on-prem or in the cloud. So we can see here, because Kim has been created in HR and it's flowed into the connected systems, he's now able to log into a laptop that has been provided to him by the organization. And just as a snapshot, this is a portal of some of the things that he may have access to as a contractor. So that brings us to our next scenario, and that is a manager access request, right? As the manager, Steve Palmer is going to need to request some additional access for Kim Long. Let's see what that really looks like. So what the manager is able to do is first himself, without going into the solution, he's identifying that Kim is a replacement for a previous contractor, Charlotte. So what he wants to be able to do is replicate Kim's access into what Charlotte previously had. And that's exactly what the IAM solution allows you to do. is here we can compare and contrast Kim's access with the previous worker, Charlotte, so that way the manager can easily go in with a few checkboxes, provision some access that Kim may need in order to replicate that previous job role. So here we can see he's going by checking a few different types of access. And what this allows us to do is when he requests this access, it may be to a more sensitive application. So that way, we can flag this as needing an approval. Some access is deemed as more sensitive than others, so it may require an approval, whether that's because of sensitivity of information or licensing costs. And then once the proper approval has been taken place, it'll flow down into connected systems. What we do want to take note here, though, is that when attempting to replicate this access, the manager has accidentally granted additional access that Charlotte didn't have previously. So now Kim gains access to the SAP application as well as SSH rights into the application as well. So what Kim is now doing is logging in to his machine, and he's going to see that he's been granted some additional access and get a little curious. So let's see what Kim actually does here. Here he's using microfocus reflection, which is an SSH tool that we offer in order to incorporate IAM principles into your SSH or terminal processes. So right upon logging into the application, Kim is viewing who he has access to as, and he can see that he has access as root. So he's going to do a few different things here that we normally would not allow end users to be able to do. The first thing he's doing is viewing who has access to the system and what type of access. And now through that command, he's viewing passwords to the application. Although they are encrypted, he's still able to view those. And now Kim actually attempted to remove the entire SAP directory in the organization or in this application, which raises a few flags, a few concerns, right? We don't want to allow end users to run these commands freely, right? So that brings us to our next scenario, detective control. And this is going to involve a few different parties, which is Rob, the system owner for SAP, as well as the CISO, Paul. So we saw previously Kim was exploring the application. He was doing things that we would not normally allow, but because he was accidentally given that access, he was able to run those commands. So although it looks like he was given that access correctly, we still want to incorporate policy to flag any commands in that system, whether you're authorized to do it or not. And that's exactly what happened here, is that when Kim was navigating through that system, running those sensitive commands, it then flagged a high risk kind of flag in our SIM solution. So here what we can see is that the SIM solution picked up that Kim was running these sensitive commands and immediately tied into the IAM solution in order to notify the correct individual so that they can assess the situation. So what Rob is now able to do is go into the IAM solution and view, does Kim actually have access into this application? Who gave him this access? Or is he using some sort of workaround method, right? Does he not have access but was still able to run these commands? And allow Rob to really get an assessment of what's going on. So what Rob is going to see is that Kim was given this access correctly, but he shouldn't necessarily have access to it. And he's going to notify the CISO and let him know what's actually been going on. It looks like Kim did try to remove a directory, so this was worth a direct call to the CISO in this situation. So let's see what this process really looks like. So here we have Rob logging in. And what he has set up here is actually a review or an access review set up just for the SAP application. We can see here that Kim has access that has changed recently, so he's the only person that shows up in this review. But as we click Kim, we gain some additional insight into what's going on, right? We can see that it wasn't authorized by a business role and that this type of access was a direct assignment. It seems to be high risk because only 1% of users have this type of access. He's also able to gain some additional information into who Kim Long is. He can see the contractor and that type of information. And here you can see that SAP privilege access has been given a high risk score. So this looks a little bit out of the ordinary. Although it was a direct assignment, it doesn't look to be right. So what Rob is going to do is go ahead and remove that access and submit the review. So what happens here is that because the review is tied into the IAM, it's tied into the entire IAM solution, immediately upon revoking this access, it's going to flow into SAP and any other connected systems that may be affected and remove Kim Long's access immediately. But it doesn't just stop there. Let's take a look at what other information Rob is able to gain from our solution. So here he's logging into our privileged access management solution. And what he's going to do here is view what Kim was doing in the application as if he were Kim himself, right? So he's able to click into the most current session that Kim Long operated as. It looks like Kim acted as the user root here, just a brief recap, but we can get full visibility into what Kim actually ran while he was logged in, as well as get some sort of risk assessment for the commands that he ran. And it doesn't stop there. We can actually get full playback into what Kim was doing so that we can not only know the commands that he ran, but also gain visibility into what information he could have been looking for. And this reflects the same clip that we saw earlier. Basically, Kim is going in, he's navigating throughout the system. He's going to view who has access to that system and what type of access, which is what we see here, as well as viewing their encrypted passwords. And then finally, he attempted to remove a directory. So now that Rob has been, he's able to view what is going on in the system. He was able to remove Kim Long's access, and he's given a direct call to the CISO to let the CISO know what exactly has been going on, right? It looks to be a little bit fishy. A contractor shouldn't just be coming into an application and doing those types of things. So in this scenario, we're going to involve the CISO, Paul, as well as a contractor, Kim Long. So what the CISO is going to want to do, because we've deemed this as very high risk or sensitive type of action that Kim has taken, the CISO now wants to deactivate all of his access. So that way, perhaps he can have a talk with Kim, see what's really going on, or terminate him. So what the CISO can do, because he has access and the power to do so, he can deactivate Kim's identity immediately. And what this does is flow downstream just how it did originally whenever Kim was provisioned, but it will also kill any of his existing sessions that are going on. So that way we can mitigate any risk that may be happening at this moment. So let's see what this really looks like. Here we have the CISO logging in. He's going to search for Kim. We've exposed a few different attributes here. We can see that his login enabled is set to true, so he is active right now. Now this dashboard is customized per the CISO's access. So he has the ability to launch this emergency disable workflow. So he's going to disable Kim Long here. And what this is going to do again is flow into our IAM solution, flow downstream, and kill any of his ongoing sessions. So as he goes back to double check and verify on Kim, he can see that the login enabled has been set to false. So Kim has now been deactivated and his sessions have been killed. Now along this process, of course, this brings us to our final scenario, and that is providing proof of compliance, right? And this is going to involve a single party, John, who is the compliance officer for the organization. Now what we want to enable John to do is to define a set of security and audit controls. And what this really means is, first, he needs to be able to define and enforce user access policies. We saw this throughout the various scenarios earlier. One, the birthright set of rights that Kim Long was given access to immediately because who he was defined as well as requesting of that additional access and any approvals that may be required along the way, right? We want to enable John to be able to do that. We also want to enforce the principle of least privilege. And what this really means is that we want to enforce that users in our organization do not have any more access than what they need in order to accomplish their daily jobs. One of the things that we can help you use to accomplish that is separation of duties. And what separation of duties are if we have two different types of access in the organization and they conflict with each other, we want to ensure that users requesting or attempting to gain these two accesses are, one, either flat out denied, or they can be escalated to a different type of approval process so that the correct individual can act on that. And an example I like to use for that one is, in a lot of organizations, we run into the accounts payable and accounts receivable role. Usually a user doesn't have access to both of these rights. So that's something that we would define as a separation of duties. And then last but not least, I think it's incredibly important to maintain your environment. And we do that through access certifications, right? We want to be able to certify on either a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis of who has access to what in the organization. So that way we can help keep the principles above, such as principle of least privilege and user access policies, right? It becomes easier to manage because you're doing that maintenance and that upkeep throughout time. One of the things that we also see in access certifications are, perhaps monthly or weekly is not enough. We want to do it every time an application or access to an application changes. And that's actually what we saw earlier, right? SAP access was one that was changed. Kim Long was the only one that was defined there. And that's something that we can do in our application as well, is do a little more ad hoc access certifications. But the main idea to all of this is really minimizing risk, right? But at the same time, again, we want to make it simple and easy to use, because we all know compliance and audits can be quite a headache. Right, so we want to enable both our internal and external auditors to gain insight into what's going on in the organization. And we do this through a single pane of glass to help provide context into who has access to what, right? And we do this through two different ways. We do it through our visual dashboards that helps translate complicated database numbers and analytics into a way that's more understandable or eligible for a human being to comprehend, right? And then at the end of the day, when audit comes in, you can export a report from our solution and hand it right to them. So that way we can help make compliance a little bit easier of an issue to address and provide all the correct information that audit may be looking for, as you see here on the right? We have the account names, what domain it's a part of, when they change their password, are they keeping up with that? Do we have policy in place to make sure that passwords are being kept? And what's the status of that access? So throughout this presentation and its various scenarios, we've seen identity governance and administration through provisioning, managing the identity lifecycle. We've seen a SIM solution or user entity behavior analytics, where we notify the correct individual that there was suspicious activity going on. And then through privilege access management, where we were able to gain full visibility into the actions and commands run in that connected system. In this case, it was SAP, and Kim Long was doing some sensitive work in that via SSH. So as we start to compare with our competitors in the market, Micro Focus really stands out because of, one, as we saw here, we were able to attack multiple problems with a single solution. And what this allows us to do is provide a very integrated experience, right? A lot of organizations, and as we've seen in the past that we've worked with as well, have these similar problems. And it becomes very difficult when it comes to implementation phase to make these products talk nicely to each other. So Micro Focus really stands out because these products are really built to work with each other from the ground up. We involve that in our development cycles and in our roadmaps moving forward. The integration is already great today, and it's only going to get better. And at the same time, although we provide a larger solution to meet all of these issues, we can still provide a very tailored and customized experience in comparison to a lot of our competitors, right? Some of our competitors really want you to adopt to their product, where Micro Focus will really understand that, you've spent years, perhaps longer, really maturing your business processes. And we want to bring in our solutions so that we can help map to your business processes today, as well as help make recommendations moving forward so that they adhere to best security practices. And that really covers everything I had to talk about today. We've seen a few different scenarios here, and what it really tied back to is how we minimize risk with Micro Focus IAM, at the same time providing an integrated and easy to use experience. So thank you so much for your time, and please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.